I want to welcome every one of you, wherever you're joining from. I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to you, depending on your time zone. I am Pastor Maxwell. Now we're here. Today is the 4th of May, 2024, and I am welcoming you to our Enlightenment broadcast. Yesterday, we saw the very clear verdict, the very clear, unchallenged judgment of the United Nations in the favor of Nnamdi Kanu. Very, very specific, very, very clear, without any ambiguity. It is so clear that nobody need to ask any question. That very judgment, and when they heard that there is a judgment of the United Nations in the favor of Nnamdi Kanu, they were asking, what exactly did they say? What exactly did they say? They said quite a lot. The judgment contains a lot. The judgment is so all-encompassing. It addressed so many aspects of the case of Nnamdi Kanu, his extraordinary rendition from Kenya to Nigeria, his solitary confinement in Nigeria, his health condition, the status of his health, more especially his heart, the torture he went through in Kenya, how his rights were abused, his fundamental human rights enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations, the Covenant of the United Nations, Principles of the United Nations, Nelson Mandela Rules, Vienna Conventions of the United Nations, and so on and so forth. From the very first paragraph, I kept on broadcasting till close to 3 good months, looking into different aspects and contents, strong words, explanations, details that the United Nations brought into the judgment. Yesterday, we saw the paragraph 107, where the United Nations mentioned very specifically, very specifically, giving order to the Nigerian government, to release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, to release him immediately, to release. They ordered. They did not suggest. They did not say you can if you want to. They said, we are ordering you to release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu immediately. Taking into consideration, I'm going to still bring it back to the screen for those who are joining us for the first time. I will bring it back to the screen before we proceed. Considering all the allegation which the government did not contest against, which the government did not challenge, considering the evidence that was brought before it, considering all the reports, with all the citations of relevant international laws in the favor of Nnamdi Kanu, considering all of this, the connivance, the collusion of the Nigerian government and that of Kenyan government to abduct Nnamdi Kanu from the soil of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta Airport, Nairobi, Kenya, and bundling him back to Nigeria, subjecting him to extraordinary rendition, solitary confinement, torture, abuse of his fundamental human rights, Considering all that transpired, the United Nations ordered the Nigerian government to release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu immediately, as at the time that this judgment was given. Instantly, immediately. They didn't order for a free trial of Nnamdi Kanu. The judgment did not say, allow him to face a fair trial, allow him equal opportunity to face fair trial. That was not the judgment, because such opportunity was given to the Nigerian government, but they did not utilize it to guarantee his fair trial in Nigeria. They abused that very opportunity. And the United Nations now stepped in and said, okay, you have abused what is very, very rudimental, what is very, very fundamental in the law, your own constitution. Therefore, you have no case against this very man you have held in solitary confinement. Release him immediately. That was number one. And ensure that you accord him an enforceable right to compensation and reparations. Compensations. You must not only release him, you must compensate him, you must pay reparations. Reparations. According to international laws. According to international laws. And you must release him immediately and unconditionally. So in the paragraph 107, we see about 4 components that are so powerful, used in delivering this very landmark, unprecedented judgment in the favor of Nnamdi Kanu and that of Biafra people, which is a very damning condemnation on the role of the Nigerian government and that of the Kenyan government in 2022 in the month of June. By next month, the case of Nnamdi Kanu would have been 3 years, 3 consecutive years. A man that committed no crime. If he committed a crime, what is holding you from convicting him in your court? You cannot convict him because there is no evidence against him, because there is no charges. There is no charges, no fitting, no befitting. There is no right charges to bring him to conviction because he has not committed any crime. If a man has committed a crime, you are not going to shop for evidence. You are not going to take such a long time to convict him when the state apparatus are at your disposal. When you have access to all the information of the crime this very person committed against the state, you cannot keep it for such a long time. You will hurriedly nail him and jail him because you have all the evidence. But because you don't have an evidence, that is why a matter of this international repute or this international standard or concern, you have been dilly-dallying up and down, adjournment upon adjournment, amendment upon amendment of the charges. And at the end of the day, you cannot be able to convict him because he has not committed any crime known to law. And so United Nations said, release him immediately. I'm bringing it back to the screen. And not only that, you must make sure you investigate the people who are complicit or who are active partners or who actually abused his fundamental human rights, who subjected him to all manner of inhuman and degrading treatment, and also bring them to justice. Not only you must pay compensation, reparation for all the things you've done to Nnamdi Kanu, and bring those state actors, bring those agents of yours that you used to perpetrate this very heinous crime, or the ones that decided to go beyond the instructions you gave to them to carry out unlawful practices or activities or actions against Nnamdi Kanu. You must also bring them to justice. So if you are just joining us, this very broadcast, this is our enlightenment broadcast. It has lasted for about 3 good months. It has lasted for about 3 consecutive months. I am Pastor Maxwell Nawihe. If you are just joining us, I welcome you. If you are just joining us, I welcome you. I welcome you. I am going to bring back that very screen. Let me bring it back. Let me bring it back to you immediately. It is back on the screen. Yes. This is the paragraph 107 that we took yesterday, which is the verdict that is so powerful, unchallenged, incontestable. Share the broadcast. Subscribe to my channel here on Engine Speak, Maxwell Nawihi. When you go to my YouTube channel, Maxwell Nawihi, subscribe to that very channel, like the content, the videos, the broadcasts, the messages, the teachings, the prophecies, and share to other people. If you go on X, right there, my handle is at Maxwell Nawihi. Follow me on X at Maxwell Nawihi. You will see these contents, the segment of this broadcast, which has lasted for about 3 months. You will see all of them there. If you go to my Facebook page, Maxwell Nawihi, you will see all of them, all the broadcasts, all the teachings, including our just concluded teaching series, which is titled The Revealed Mystery Behind Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. It was a very deep exposition and a very, very powerful teaching series that opened the eyes of so many people, which they truly confessed that they have not had such a teaching before, that they have not known such secrets before. The focus of that very teaching series was on generational leadership, the mystery behind Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. So it is also here on Engine Speak. It is here on Engine Speak. If you go to X, you will see it there. If you go to my Facebook page, you will see it there. And if you go to YouTube, Google it, type in the search on YouTube, you will see it there. Engine Speak on YouTube, you will see the teaching series there. So this is where we are broadcasting from today, a continuation of other episodes. The working group considers that taking into account all the circumstances of the case, the appropriate remedy would be for the government of Nigeria to release Mr. Kanu immediately and for both governments to accord him an enforceable right to compensation and other reparations in accordance with international laws in the current context of the global coronavirus disease COVID-19 pandemic and the threat that it poses in places of detention. The working group calls upon the government of Nigeria to take urgent action to ensure the immediate unconditional release of Mr. Kanu. I have dealt with this, analyzed it yesterday. I don't want to do any analysis on this. Go back to the broadcast of yesterday and listen. It lasted for close to 1 hour. So, paragraph 108, the working group urges the two governments. The two governments here in reference is the government of Nigeria and the government of Kenya. To ensure a full and independent investigation of the circumstances surrounding the arbitrary deprivation of liberty of Mr. Kanu and to take appropriate measures against those responsible for the violation of his rights. Take appropriate measures against those responsible for the violation of his rights. This is what the United Nations is saying. This is not a single country or an organization that doesn't have bearing to influence the government or the policies of the world. No. This is not coming from any little insignificant organization. This is coming from the United Nations. From the United Nations. And you know, disobeying the very judgment that is coming from them has a severe consequences. It is going to attract a very severe consequences. That is what the IPOB leadership should be talking about, on how to compel the Nigerian government to comply with the very judgment that is coming from the United Nations. You know that anything that is an external influence that is coming from the very strongest organizations, more especially United Nations, is easily accepted by the African countries, more especially when this is a very good judgment in the favor of the indigenous people, a very good, well-deserved judgment or justice in the favor of over 70 million Biafran people. If you are running around the court of Nigeria, you're wasting your time. If you are running around trying to see how only name calling or whatever you are using your media platforms to do, other than campaigning very vigorously and very consistently and persistently with this very United Nations judgment, you are wasting a lot of time. Except you love the elongated period of the incarceration of Nnamdi Kanu. Except you love it. If you love it, you are not going to talk about the UN judgment. If you love the way that Nnamdi Kanu has been treated over the years in the custody of the Department of State Security Services, DSS, you will not talk about the UN judgment. You won't talk about it, because the more you talk about it, the more you create awareness of it. And the more you create awareness of it, the more the United Nations understands that this very judgment has not been implemented. We are going to read a very powerful section of this very judgment that talks about the follow-up program or the follow-up provision. The follow-up provision comprises in a situation whereby the government did not comply with the judgment, what the United Nations will do to the government, what United Nations will do to the government, and also that the correspondents of Nnamdi Kanu, the representatives of Nnamdi Kanu, the attorney of Nnamdi Kanu should report back to the United Nations to tell the United Nations how far, since the judgment was given, how far has the government complied with the judgment? All the things, the order, the ultimatum, the provisions, and all that is contained in this very judgment that the United Nations instructed or ordered the government to do. How far have the government or has the government gone in implementing them? It is under the follow-up program and follow-up provision of this very judgment. So that is what the IPOB leadership should have been doing. This very judgment was handed to them on the platter of gold. On the platter of gold. The money of IPOB worldwide did not enter into this very judgment. The money of the IPOB worldwide did not enter, did not secure this very judgment. It was handed over to this generation on the platter of gold. And you see, as we say in this part of the world, that people don't really value what they didn't suffer for, what they didn't labor for. If you give them something, if you just hand out something to them and give it to them, something of great value and importance, so long as they didn't suffer to get it, in as much as they did not make any sacrifice to get that very thing, they will abuse it. They will abuse it. The working group urges the two governments to ensure a full and independent investigation of the circumstances surrounding the arbitrary deprivation of liberty of Mr. Kanu and to take appropriate measures against those responsible for the violation of his rights. Malami was there. Malami was there. Tuku Buratai, nobody's talking about him again. The former Army General, Chief of Army Staff, he was there. Muhammadu Buhari was there. I don't want to mention the names of individuals because it's not in my position to do it. Let those that is in their position to do it go ahead and do it. Call them to account. Hold them accountable. The UN judgment ordered the government of Nigeria to investigate the circumstances, all the things that happened that resulted in the arbitrary deprivation of the liberty of Nnamdi Kanu, and also take appropriate measures against those people, those agents of the government who we are responsible for the violations of his rights. Take appropriate measures. And these appropriate measures cannot just be something you decide at will. No. You must look into relevant sections of the law to judge their actions, the role that they played, and then make sure that you bring them to justice. Now, paragraph 109, in accordance with paragraph 33, section A of its method of work, the working group refers the present case to the special rapporteur on torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment for appropriate action.